G'day everyone, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about the idea of compartmentalisation and this extension of the present moment of the day to a greater degree when we're at that edge of performance. Now what you might notice is that at the beginning it's hard to get through a day because you've got all these things crowding your mind of like, okay, in a career, like I've got this thing, but there's this really stressful thing at the end of the day. I don't know how I'm going to get through all these things. As you get better and better at managing that stress, it's not that the individual stresses aren't still there. It's more that what happens is your day extends out and suddenly it feels incredibly long. So when you're really pushing yourself to the limit, the day itself feels like a lifetime. And so you're not going to worry about the afternoon because it feels like a lifetime away. You're not going to worry about that knotty problem that suddenly popped up because you might have scheduled it in your calendar for a later date to think about. Because what ends up happening is as you pay more and more attention and gets pushed to the edge of performance, you end up putting greater and greater focus on that present moment. And that, of course, can be enhanced by doing mindfulness techniques such as Sam Harris's Waking Up podcast, which I highly recommend, which I really, really like. But as much as anything, it's just a matter of being able to be confident that we can deal with problems in the future the same way that we can deal with the problems in the present, and then just finding a way to schedule those problems to deal with later on. So it's not that we don't have the same amount of pain, it's more that we don't look forward to the pain, we don't care about the pain as much, because we're confident we can deal with that when we have these hard professional days that we become adapted to and acclimatized to. Now it's all about the timing, and I really think it's important in both your professional life and your personal life to be really on the clock. Because what it is your brain's obviously incredibly good at working things out, but one of the major issues, especially in this world of this sort of what we call information overload, is that it's unable to really distinguish the past, the future, and the present. So you end up thinking about things in the future and the past as if they were present. And I think the internet only adds to this because really what happens in a computer is a computing device is where time itself essentially ceases to exist. Because the future for a computer, any image of the past remains there forever. It's immortal, it doesn't degrade. And there's future events in the computer that just sit there ready to go as if they're in the present. So there's this flattening out of time almost, or this pressurized thing in a computer that time itself basically ceases to exist, which is a blessing and the curse of the internet. It's essentially a world of immortals, and whereas we have to live our life a second at a time, an event at a time, and we have to make sure we're always funneling things into our brain, sort of one by one, so we can work them out and configure them and understand them. And that's really important, I think, in a job. I really try and have at least a Saturdays set aside for doing my own thing. And that's when I really think about my career. I think about whether this is what I want to do. I explore other options. I do stuff like creative projects like this. Because what I'm really trying to do is separate out the processing time. So I focus completely on the work during the work times. And then when I'm outside of work, completely focus on something else. Even though sometimes, sure, work things will come up. I think that's fine to accept that there'll be work things that'll come up when you're outside of work. And there's also things that'll come up in work from outside. The important thing is not to calculate them, not to dwell on them, just record them or put them aside either mentally or in a diary so you consider them another time. So I always consider this as the inputs only, is what I call it, where you consider things at a later date and just accept the inputs. So the input might really be getting up on Monday going, this sucks, I want another job. Okay, so there's two options there. You can dwell on that, say, oh, okay, maybe I should get another job. Or you can see it for what it is, which is the inevitable consequence of suffering, because you're getting up early, you're doing something that's difficult. Suffering is a part of life. There's no way around that. Those thoughts will always come, no matter what you do. You can certainly consider those thoughts, but not on Monday morning when you've got to do your job. So what you do then, or what I do, is I go, okay, that's fine, I get it. I've made a mental note. We'll think about the fact you really want another job. You don't want to go to work anymore. At another day, on the Saturday or the night where we'll set aside that time. And that's the time when I think, is this a real thought? Okay, why am I thinking this? What are the other options? What are the other futures? How do we think strategically? And really make that strategic plan based on the inputs of the week. So that's why it's really important to keep a diary so you can record those inputs at the time rather than having to try and process them. But again, our mind is incredibly good at doing things in sequence consciously. And I think it's absolutely fine to accept that somewhere in the back of your mind there'll be that sort of parallel processing where you will be churning over, thinking about other careers and other jobs and other options. But as long as it's not conscious, it's fine. And you might get that sort of halo effect of emotions rising from those background thoughts. That's okay, as long as you're focusing on one thing at a time, getting your job done. Because it doesn't matter if you quit your job 2 weeks from now, you still have to get through the day. And it's almost never the right thing to do. Basically, almost never case the right thing to do to quit your job on that day. If you really feel like quitting, that's when you call in sick and say, look, sorry, I can't make it to work today, I'm unwell. And go to your doctor and get a note and say, hey, look, I'm actually mentally struggling here, and get that help. I think that's totally honourable and useful thing to do. If you really can't go to work and you feel you can't go to work, I think not being able to do it mentally is a totally reasonable excuse, and going to a doctor about that is totally the right thing to do. I wish I'd done that in the past when I had those sort of issues. All right. Well, thanks very much, guys. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.